Well, hello and welcome to Swissquote Global. This is Bill Rao, the founder and CEO. It's my great pleasure today to be introducing Carolita Oliveros, an attorney at law, an international business entrepreneur. And today she's going to be hosting another episode of Money Matters. And we've had the pleasure of having Carolita with us now for, I think this is her third, even maybe the fourth year of hosting these monthly calls, which is giving our members around the world fantastic training and coaching on entrepreneurship. Ms Oliveros is an author, speaker, and international business attorney focused on working with clients in international business, e-commerce, international manufacturing, distribution and marketing of products and services, intellectual property rights. The list goes on and on and on. She holds a bachelor degree from the University of Florida in the USA, master's degree from the University of Texas, Austin, and the Juris Doctor from the University of Arizona of the US Law. Her credentials go on and on. I'm going to touch on this because I really want to share the value that you get on this particular call. So during the last 25 years, she's accomplished many achievements, many achievements, including the faculty instructor in the Maguire Entrepreneurship Program at the University of Arizona, Tucson, and at the Entrepreneurship Program at the Thunderbird American Graduate School of International Management, adjunct instructor at the Pima College teaching courses on business law, managing a non-profit organization, and finance faculty member for the Best of Brilliant Ideas Business Plan Contest 2010-2011, and author on courses leading the non-profit organization, instructor and co-author of The Rich Dad, which many of you would know that name from Robert Kiyosaki. She co-authored there, the personal finance course. So it's a great pleasure to have Carolita Oliveros on another call with Swissquote Global, teaching, coaching, mentoring you in the world of entrepreneurship. So the call's over to you, Carolita.
Thank you so much. It's always such a pleasure to be here and to present these webinars. And Bill, I can't thank you enough for the opportunity over all these years to work with you on all of this. Well, it's sort of morning for me. It's late morning for me. I'm sure it's evening or late night for some of you. So thank you for tuning in. It's gratifying to me that you are thirsting this knowledge and that you are so committed that you would be up in the middle of the night or whatever local time it is for you to hear this information and to gain benefit from it. So let's just get right on with it. As usual, we're thinking big, although I need to change that slide to say think bigger and bigger, because that's really where we've been going. You know, we're not only thinking big, we're thinking exponentially. We're being bold about it, but we're not being negligent. We're being strategic. And that, I think, is really the key. If you look at these four elements, and exactly how that fits into the overall scheme of what we talk about on these programs, you will see the pattern. It's not just thinking big. You have to start there because you have to get outside of whatever that box is you've got yourself encased in. So think exponentially. Think outside that box and be bold about that and be strategic. Last time, we did part one of Walmart, of the case study on Walmart. And the project that I gave you to work on was to pick out 2 unique features that you gained from that case study. There were probably more than 2 things that just really kind of hit you in the head, you know, and like the old expression, being hit in the head with a 2x4. You know, sometimes we get these insights, these aha moments, when we hear something and we think, oh, okay, that's what we've been talking about, or that's how it applies. So what were those insights? What were those unique features that you got out of the case study on part one for Walmart? We did a lot of explaining and describing about branding and how Walmart and all of these companies, not just Walmart, but the McDonald's case study before that, and then over the past 3 or 4 years, we've looked at all kinds of techniques for branding and protecting intellectual property rights. So describe how you apply the branding concepts that you learned in the Walmart case in part 1 to your business. And then look at and make a little list of the intellectual property rights that you own. I mean, we're looking at all of the intellectual property rights that these big corporations like McDonald's and Walmart own. So start making a list of what you own and your intellectual property. That was your project for last time. There'll be another project for today at the end of this presentation. As I said, this is part 2 of the case study on exponential success, and we're looking at Walmart. Now, we're looking at wholly owned retail stores and what those strategies are for evaluating those types of businesses. And the interesting thing about that is that retail stores are both online, obviously, because we all access them online, and they have physical locations many times. Some stores have gone totally online. Egghead computers, way back in the day when the internet first came out in a big way. It's been around a long time, but when people were first becoming really aware of it, Egghead closed down all of its local retail stores and went totally online. I think they were probably the first to actually see the horizon on where the internet was going to go. Walmart, however, has been a latecomer in a way, as have many of the retail stores, had been a latecomer to the online arena for retail. And they classify themselves as a discount retail store because they like to keep their prices lower. We talked about what their motto is in terms of always giving you the best price, giving you the lowest price. And today, in 2017, they have been ranked as the world's largest retail company by Forbes, and Forbes has a global list of the most powerful and of the public companies, because this is not a private company. Keep in mind, they went public. In other words, they offered their stock publicly to anybody who wanted to buy it a number of years ago, many years ago actually. They've been a public company for a very long time. So how do we measure them? And this is just a little summary of what we talked about last time, but I want to keep it in your mind because we're going to look at one part of this again. We've looked at some of this already in part 1. But to measure it, it's the composite score of revenues, profits, because remember, revenues and profits are 2 different things. You've got revenues, then you take off all of your expenses, leaving you with gross profits or adjusted gross profits, assets, and then market value. So quickly, I'm going to run through the top 10 retailers on the Forbes list, just to refresh your memory, so that you will know why I'm referring to certain stores throughout the presentation. Walmart was number 1, CVS Pharmacy, number 2, Amazon, number 3. Keep in mind where Amazon is. 4, Walgreens. 5, Home Depot. 6, Alibaba.com. 7, Costco. 8 is Lowe's Home Improvement Warehouse. 9 is Target. and 10 is Best Buy. Now, a comment on these company names. Those are the names that they are on the public offering list in the United States. They may be doing business in your country under a little bit different name. Amazon, which you saw as number 3, and Alibaba.com are in hot pursuit of Walmart. And look where Amazon last year for 2016 was 154. Actually, they jumped 154 places, so, and they're 3 now, so they were 157. That's a huge jump in 1 year's time. And Alibaba was on the top 10 list, but it wasn't where it is today, because Target was number 9, as you saw, and Alibaba jumped over Target to get into the 6th place, which pushed Target down. So Target got pushed down a couple of times, actually, and is still on the top 10 list, but it's number 9 for this year. Alibaba is up in 6th. When we ended our call last time, we had just talked about the fact that in 2010, Walmart acquired a video streaming company by the name of VUDU Inc. for an estimated $100 million US dollars. And this is really the beginning of where I want to start today, because this is a whole new strategy. We are very used to having all of these large companies, these international companies, as well as domestic companies. I mean, domestic in the United States where I live, domestic in the countries where you live, because it's going on all over the world in the business community. We're so used to having them either own their own stores, or we've already talked about franchising. And we talked about franchising with McDonald's, because originally McDonald's owned its own stores and then decided that it was so lucrative to franchise out those operations and not have to be responsible for all of the employees and so forth. So they started franchising. Well, Walmart has not franchised, but what they have done, and you're going to see today, they have done it in not just a huge way, but in an exponentially huge way. They started buying up other companies. And when we get to, and hopefully we will do this at some point in the future, we'll talk about what Amazon has done, because that's another exponential company that has done some amazing things. But what Walmart did here with this video streaming company, instead of reinventing the wheel and going back and doing their own video streaming and setting up their own company for that, they bought a company that already was successful. You're going to see that again in just a little while as we go through these different points. So let's look at Walmart's assets. Last time I mentioned to you that as of January 31 of this year, 2017, Walmart owned worldwide 11,695 stores and clubs in 28 different countries. Now that also includes their distribution centers. 28 countries, 11,695 different entities. So let's just look at Walmart US, because we're going to go through each one of their major divisions. And these are all individual legal entities. You know, that's the way you separate out. When we've spent time in the past talking about why you set up a legal entity to put your business in, why not just run it as a sole proprietor? What are the downsides to that? Risk, particularly. So all of these companies have a multitude of different legal entities that they have their assets divided up into. And again, you do that so that you do not have all of your assets at risk all at one time. So you put them in different legal entities. And sometimes that's just necessary because you're in different countries and it has to be set up in a legal entity in that particular country. So this is another strategy for doing business, whether you're just doing it in your own country or whether you're doing it in multiple different countries. Setting up different legal entities to hold certain assets. That way you can spread your risk out. So if you were to ever get sued, or if something really traumatic happened with the company, then everything you owned would not be lost all at one time. Under Walmart USA, we've got a number of different stores that you will recognize. We've got the Walmart Supercenter, which are in a number of different countries as well as in the US. We've got Walmart discount stores, Walmart neighborhood markets. Those are particularly popular in the United States. In the city where I live, I think we've got probably 5 Walmart neighborhood markets, in addition to at least one, and I'm trying to think whether they classify another one. We've got at least one supercenter, maybe 2, and probably 3 or 4 Walmart discount stores. Amigo. If you're familiar with the company called Amigo, Walmart owns that. Then Walmart started Walmart on Campus, Walmart to Go. And then, of course, the online company is called Walmart.com. That's just for the online sales. So see how they've got it all divided out? This is very typical. And each one of these falls under Walmart USA. Then we've got Sam's Club. Sam's Club is a totally different entity. Back in the day, Sam Walton's brother was called Bud. His nickname was called Bud, B-U-D. And at one point in time, we not only had Sam's Clubs in the United States, but we also had Bud's Discount Warehouse, which was another totally different entity that did different things. So Sam's Club has survived. Bud's Discount Warehouse was eventually, after a number of years, dismantled. It was closed out because there was no longer a need for it. But we've got 655 Sam's Clubs operating across the United States. We've also got them in foreign countries, but this is just under Walmart US. Now, because Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States, these numbers now include, they used to include Puerto Rico in their international numbers, but that's no longer the case. Now all of the numbers that I'm showing you include the Walmarts that are in Puerto Rico. Here are some other areas. Now these are, again, different. This is not under Walmart US. These are different corporate entities. There's a whole entity that deals with logistics, and that includes Walmart Transportation and also distribution centers and transportation offices. So that's another whole segment of the company. Then there's Walmart Realty, claims management. So they have their own company set up just to do claims management. You know, most of the time you would think about claims management as falling under an insurance company, but they have their own office set up to handle all of that. This is an interesting concept. Walmart portrait studios. In other words, you go in with either yourself or your family or with a friend or a whole group of people, and you have your picture made. In 2006, Walmart rebranded Walmart Portrait Studios, and it's now called Picture Me Portrait Studios. Here's the interesting thing about this concept. When they rebranded, they kind of farmed it out. They decided that they would bring in an independent contractor. The name of that company is CPI Corp Incorporated. So they brought in CPI to manage the operations of the portrait studios. And the way that works is that CPI pays to Walmart. They pay rent for the space where the portrait studio is inside the Walmart store. Because this is inside the Walmart store, okay? So they pay rent for that space, and they pay a license fee to use the Walmart brand. That gets us two concepts rolled into one, because I've talked a lot with you about how to monetize your intellectual property. And here's an example of exactly how Walmart is monetizing part of its brand. So they're leasing out space to the company that's operating the portrait studios, and they're getting rent for that. So they're getting money off of the rent, and they're also getting a license fee so that CPI can use the Walmart brand in conjunction with the portrait studios. And if I could just for a moment put my legal hat on, my legal opinion would be, and I didn't find this in the research that I did. I know that they have signed an agreement because I did find that. However, I didn't find the terms of the agreement, but I would tell you that more than likely in that agreement between Walmart and CPI, there is a whole section of that agreement that not only talks about a license fee, but also talks about a payment of a royalty off of the income from the portraits. Because I'm positive that there's an income sharing agreement going on there. CPI is getting some percentage of the income from people paying to have their portraits made. But Walmart is also getting a percentage off of that. I am sure of it. Then we've got the Walmart Money Center. Now this is a trade name, another type of branding, another type of intellectual property. They used to call it Walmart Financial Services. They changed that. So the trade name now is Walmart Money Center. And for those of you who have ever thought about using a trade name, a lot of times you'll see D/B/A, doing business as, and then it'll list Walmart Money Center or whatever name you're doing business under. And what that means is that that's your trade name. You can actually register those trade names. In the United States, we register them with the Secretary of State in each state, wherever you're doing business, wherever your company is formed. In other countries, there's another way for you to, another government agency that you can register your trade name under. So this is another type of intellectual property, and it's part of your branding. There are all kinds of different services that are offered under the Walmart the Walmart Money Center. They offer Walmart Money Card, and if you will look at that name, I've got a TM, a superscript. It's called superscript if it's above it, subscript if it's down at the bottom of it. TM stands for trademark. That means that there's a trademark application pending, and it's not issued yet. So if it were issued, it would be a circle. It would be a capital R inside a circle. That would mean registered. This one is a trade name. As far as I know, that trade name or that trademark hasn't issued yet. When it does, then that TM will go away and there will be an R with a circle around it. Another type of intellectual property. They also do money transfers, bill payment. You can buy money orders. They also cash checks, and they will print checks, like cashier's checks and money orders, for example. So these are the types of services that now come under the Walmart Money Center. Walmart has vision centers. Again, another new concept. Walmart didn't go out and hire a bunch of doctors, eye doctors, to come in and be employees of Walmart. Instead, they hired the doctors as independent contractors. The doctors pay rent to set up their eye practice, you know, their vision store inside the Walmart or inside Sam's Club, because they're in both. They've got vision centers both in Walmart's and as well as in Sam's Club. And I'll tell you who else does this in a very big way, because one of my friends in Phoenix happens to be an eye doctor, and he has the same kind of a deal with COSTCO. And COSTCO is another worldwide, as you saw, it's one of the top 10, and it's another worldwide international company. So they've got a vision center inside the Walmart store or inside Sam's Club. The doctor who's running the vision center is an independent contractor. He has his own company. He pays rent. And I do know that those agreements also are like the portrait studio, and they do pay a royalty. In addition to paying a licensing fee to use the Walmart name, they also pay a royalty on their proceeds, on their revenues, a percentage. This is the way that Walmart maximizes the space inside their stores, number one. It's a benefit to them because they do not have to hire more employees, because these people are not employees of Walmart. They're independent contractors. And they're making money off of the space. They're making money off of their name, which is their intellectual property, because they're licensing it and they're getting a royalty on the use of it. So it's a whole nother income stream into the Walmart Corporation. Very clever. Let's look at Walmart International. We're moving out of Walmart US and any kind of domestic operation, because all of those other things that we just talked about, even though not all of them were under Walmart US, the company Walmart US, they are entities, Walmart entities, servicing all of the states in the United States. Well, let's move that now, as of January 31, 2017, to the international arena. Walmart has 6,363 different entities or stores, not including some of the distribution centers. There are distribution centers out there that are not included in this number. The distribution centers were included in that 11,695 that I showed you at the very beginning of the seminar. So let's look at all the different countries that they're in and what types of stores they have in those countries. This, to me, was absolutely fascinating. I had no idea. I really never looked at, prior to doing the research for this webinar, I'd really never looked at the different entities in each country that Walmart had acquired or that it had set up under its own name. Now, Walmart owns Walmart Argentina. That's a wholly owned subsidiary in Argentina. And it is comprised of 5 different types of stores. Some of these stores are under the Walmart name, like Walmart Supercenter, and 3 of the stores are under a different name of a company that it bought in Argentina that already owned stores. We talked about this early on, that Walmart would buy up, when we talked about, for example, Asada in the UK, in the United Kingdom. Asada was already there and a successful business. Walmart came in and bought it, which meant that Walmart bought all of the stores that Asada had, or Asda, I'm sorry, I'm saying it incorrectly. Okay, Spanish on my mind. Asda, ASDA. So that was another example, and we'll look at that again in a minute. But Walmart Argentina has 5 different storefronts in Argentina. Botswana, and this was relatively new. Argentina came online in 1995. So Walmart Argentina has been around now for over 20 years. However, Botswana came online in 2011. And Walmart bought MASSMART in Botswana. And MASSMART already had Game Food Co. There were 2 of those. Another entity called CBW, 7 of those. And Builders Warehouse, 2 of those. So this is another way for large companies, Walmart and all of the other large companies, international companies out there, to acquire stores to expand their operations, to get to more of the public without having to do all of the work. You know, that's another tactic of Amazon. Amazon buys up little companies all the time, because it's more productive and more cost effective, and you can expand faster if you do not have to go in, set up all of these different entities, hire all of these different people, all these different associates and employees. Upfront the cost, because the cost can be enormous to do all of that. Instead, you buy an already successful operating company. Everything is already set up. Walmart Brazil. Walmart Brazil has also been around for over 20 years, since 1995. Again, Walmart owns Walmart Brazil. That's a wholly owned company. And there are lots of different entities in Brazil. 1, 2, there are 12 different types of companies. Todo Dia, Nacional, Supermarket, Walmart Supercenter, so they do have a supercenter in Brazil, Maxi, Alocado, Big, Hypermarket, they've got a Sam's Club in Brazil, 27 of them actually, Mercadorama, Walmart Posto, Supermercado, Todo Dia, and then Hyper Todo Dia. Lots of different entities in Brazil, all owned by Walmart. Walmart Canada, owned by Walmart, wholly owned. Canada was first established in 1994. So Walmart Canada has been around for a long time. Walmart Canada has a Walmart supermarket, Walmart discount stores. They've got 330 supercenters, 80 discount stores, Walmart Logistics, which is the warehouse and logistics operation that's now taken over totally by Walmart Canada, and it was changed to Walmart Logistics. So they've got a lot going on in Walmart and in Canada. Okay, CHILE, another wholly owned company by Walmart. And there are 5 different types of entities comprising 363 stores in Chile. That came online in 2009. Walmart China. Walmart China has been around since 1996. So again, over 20 years. They've got 399 Walmart supercenters, 19 hypermarkets, 14 Sam's Clubs, 1 Smart Choice, and they've got 2 neighborhood markets. So China does have a Walmart neighborhood market. Now, let's look at some of the international acquisitions and how they do these, because this is a lesson all in itself of how to successfully expand by acquiring. You know, there's always an art form, a process, a procedure to doing it successfully. And I've got just a couple of pages of all of these acquisitions. There were too many of them for me to actually make slides for, because we would have been here for quite a while just looking at the slides. But let me just give you some examples. Pace Membership Warehouse, which was converted to a Sam's Club. Woolco in Canada, which was converted to Walmart. And then, as I said a little while ago, ASDA, ASDA in the United Kingdom. That's owned by Walmart. Sayu, I hope I'm saying that correctly, Sayu Limited in Japan is owned by Walmart. There are a couple of companies in Germany that are owned by Walmart. Walmart.com, which is the online business, that was originally started as a joint venture. That's another way to set up an expansion program, joint venture with somebody else. You bring in joint venture partners. That way, Walmart or whoever it is, you, if you're doing it with your company, you're not footing the entire cost of the expansion and the purchase of acquiring. So Walmart.com started as a joint venture, and it has since been fully acquired and is wholly owned subsidiary now of Walmart. One of the Brazilian operations is now a wholly owned subsidiary of Walmart Brazil. The Seiyu Group in Japan. Walmart originally acquired a 6.1% stake in Seiyu beginning in May of 2002. Then they acquired a majority interest of 53% in December of 2005. And that gave Walmart effective control of the company. Walmart's stake was then increased to 95% in 2007, and by 2008, the remaining shares were acquired, so it's now a wholly owned subsidiary. That's another example of when you acquire a percentage of another company, you can do it in steps. You don't have to do it all at one time. You don't have to buy 100% of something. You can buy in small increments. And over a period of time, and that example was over a period of 6 years, every year, probably according to a written agreement that they had, Walmart would come in and increase their shareholding by paying a certain amount of money for additional shares, increasing their holdings until they got up to 100%. Another very clever strategy. Walmart in Mexico and Central America. In 2009, Walmart Mexico acquired Walmart's operations in Central America from the Walmart stores, okay, and 2 minority partners. So you've got Walmart Mexico acquiring some of the stores that were already owned by a different division of Walmart, bringing those stores into a combined company for Mexico and Central America. Walmart's operations in Mexico started as Walmex, a joint venture between Cifra of Mexico and Walmart Stores, Inc. Walmart later bought a majority interest in Cifra and changed the name to Walmart de Mexico. Walmex is independently traded on the Mexican Stock Exchange, although Walmart Stores, Inc. is a majority interest. So, another example of how these mergers and acquisitions occur. How do you structure them? I don't know if you've ever wondered about it, but I certainly have, and I'm always fascinated by the creative ways that companies come up with to acquire operations which will expand their overall reach into the international marketplace. In January 2009, remember we talked about Chile coming online in 2009, Walmart completed acquisition of 58.2% of the leading Chilean retailer, adding brands of major importance in that market, such as Hyperleader. By March 2009, Walmart had increased its stake to approximately 73%. Here's another little incremental escalation in ownership. And the Chilean company was renamed Walmart Chile. In February 2014, it was announced that Walmart had acquired the stock of the last major shareholder, and that brought their stake up to 99.72%. Then Walmart announced that it was going to launch a cash tender offer for the remaining outstanding shares. Well, by that time, they had a minuscule amount of shares that they did not own. So I'm sure that by now, because the data that I'm looking at is a little earlier in this year, so I'm sure that the data would reflect that by now that they have 100% interest in Walmart Chile. In 2011, Walmart completed the purchase of 51% of MASSMART. And remember, we talked about MASSMART. MASSMART is in Botswana. MASSMART operates stores primarily in South Africa, but also in various sub-Saharan African nations, and the brands added to the Walmart family include Cambridge Foods, Game, Dion Wired, Macro, Builders Warehouse, Builders Express, Builders Trade Depot, CBW, Jumbo Cash and Carry, the Shield Buying Group, and several others. In July, the South African government filed an appeal of the Competition Tribunal decision to allow the merger, and that followed an appeal earlier by a local labor union. What that says is that there were groups within Botswana and within Africa that did not want those mergers to occur, because a lot of those companies were owned by they were locally owned. And they did not want them to become part of an international conglomeration. It would be the same in the United States for those of you on this call that are U.S. citizens and are familiar with the U.S. Justice Department and the Securities and Exchange Division of the U.S. government looking at mergers and acquisitions to see whether or not it would stamp out competition if the merger were to occur. Well, that's why these appeals were taking place in South Africa and the African nations, because they were afraid that it was going to stamp out local competition. By March of 2012, the appeals court dismissed the case by the government ministries, but acknowledged that there were legitimate concerns about the effect of the deal on small producers and employment. The appeals court decision effectively put an end to the legal challenges to the merger. So Walmart won out at the end of the day, but they had to go through a couple of lawsuits and a couple of investigations by the court and the tribunal in order to go forward with the mergers. And that does happen. It happens frequently. It goes on in the United States regularly. And now we know that it goes on in other countries as well. In October of 2013, Walmart announced that it would end the 50-50 agreement with Bharti Enterprises, and this is in India. Bharti would operate its retail stores independently, and Walmart Stores, Inc. takes 100% ownership of 20 best-priced modern wholesale cash and carry businesses operating in India. So Walmart owns 100% of the operations in India, and Bharti split off its other stores from the Walmart name. I think those are the major ones. Those are the big ones. We could go on, but as I said, there are so many of them. And I want to talk to you just a little bit about Sam Walton's view of how he started this company, what his strategies were, because I found it very interesting, and I think you will as well. You know, that gives you an overall picture. What we've just talked about in part one gives you an overall picture of Walmart, what the Walmart assets are, what their brandings are. They're different because they've got 63 different, they're operating under 63 different brands and companies worldwide. That's a lot of intellectual property to keep up with. But it gives you an overall picture of how big it can become, because your imagination is only limited to the extent that you can't think beyond it. You know, if you don't, if you are still in that box, if you are still thinking small, if you have not allowed your imagination to grow exponentially, then it will be difficult up until the point that you do allow it to create a mega corporation the size of Walmart or McDonald's or Amazon. Because you really have to see beyond the boundaries in order to do this. Just a reminder, this is kind of the history of the Walmart name and the Walmart intellectual property, how it was trademarked. And of course, that's what it looks like on all the trucks now. Sam Walton wrote a very interesting autobiography. Mr. Walton died in 1992. And before he died, he had been, from what I understand, of reading documents written by his son, Sam Walton had been working kind of hit and miss on an autobiography for many years. Well, he became very, very ill. He came down with bone cancer. And for several years, even after the diagnosis, he did just fine. I mean, he continued taking his plane and flying to different stores, meeting with all of his associates, meeting with management teams and so forth, because that was what he really loved to do. Until 1991, and Doubleday as a book publishing company, had been really sort of hounding him, I guess you could say. They were calling him regularly saying, Sam, when are you going to get back to your autobiography? We really want this, we want to publish this book. So at the very end of his life, he sat down and wrote full time with the help of a ghostwriter whose name is John Huey. John Huey worked for Doubleday. He sat down and wrote this autobiography. And it's really quite interesting. I mean, some of it I was really surprised at, quite frankly, because he's got a very different business philosophy. You know, he started very small and grew to a megalith over a period of 50 or 60 years. So I want to just share with you what I thought were his most interesting comments at the end of the book. because people were always asking him, well, what are your rules? Because he would always say, he had a habit of saying, well, that's the key to whatever this is. Or my rule for that is, and then he'd list his rule. So he had some set rules. They were not written down on paper, but he had them in his head. He had them in his being, in his heart, because that's how he operated. So he said, okay, I'm going to write down the 10 rules that work for me. That doesn't mean they will work for you, but this, if you want to know how I did, what I've done over all these years, and how we've gone from one store in Rogers, Arkansas, to 28, being in 28 countries and owning 11,695 different entities, this is how I did it. And he said, I'm going to start the list, but before I do that, I want to tell you that there are some things that I do not put on the list. One of them is hard work. Because if you don't know that you have to work hard to make all of this happen, then you should not be working as an entrepreneur. You should get a job for somebody else. Building a team. You cannot do this without a team around you. You can't do it single-handedly. And if you don't already know that, same comment. You have to have goals and set them high. And he said, that's what I expected out of all of my managers. That's what I expected out of all of my associates, because he called employees associates. So he said, I don't put those on my rules list because those are givens. You have to have those to even get started. So let's talk about Sam's rules for building a business. And number one is to commit to your business. You know, we've talked about that many times over the last 3 or 4 years. You have to make a commitment. You have to believe in it more than anybody else believes in it. And sometimes, in spite of everybody else, you have to believe in it. I can't even count the number of times that I've had people say to me, say to my clients, say to the students that I've taught over all these many years, oh, well, you can't do that. You'll never do that. Well, you just have to put those people on ignore. You know, the little button on the side of your head that says ignore, you hit that ignore button. Because sometimes you just, if you really believe in it and you know you can do it and you're committed to it, you have to do it in spite of what your family says, of what your friends say, of what anybody else outside of that group says. You just have to go for it. Rule number 2, share your profits with your employees or your associates and treat them as partners. In other words, give them a stake. Give them an opportunity to be a part of that company as a stakeholder. Because when somebody owns a piece of the pie, then they are far more committed to seeing that it becomes a success. So that was his rule number 2. Rule number 3, motivate your partners. All of those partnerships that Walmart had around the world and in the United States, I mean everywhere, throughout their entire organization. All of those partnerships. You have to set high goals and be creative and motivate those partners, as well as motivating your associates and your employees. And he goes through a whole list in the book of ways that they, creative things that they did to motivate people. Rule number 4, communicate everything that you possibly can, and that doesn't mean giving away trade secrets, but communicate as much as you can to your partners and to the associates in the stores and your management team. The more they know and understand, the more they will care. Information is power, and empowering your associates brings big gains to your business. So again, you need to be discretionary about some of the things that you communicate, but those things that you can communicate, then do that. Make everyone feel like they're part of the in-group, that the in-group is not just somebody who sits up in a golden tower on the 44th floor of some building that they never see and never get to talk to. Rule number 5, appreciate everything your employees do for the business. Nothing else can substitute for a few well-chosen and very sincere words of praise. Giving words of praise is absolutely free, and at the same time, it's worth a fortune. One of the great lessons that I've learned over the years is that money motivates some people, position motivates other people, but the large majority of the people that work for your company, work with you in some way, either as outside consultants or as employees or as family members, friends. I have never met anyone that did not appreciate having a kind word said to them or having somebody recognize the good job that they've done and tell them how much it's appreciated. So do not assume. I guess what Sam is saying and what I've learned from my own personal experience is that do not assume that you can just pay somebody more money and you'll buy their loyalty, because that goes so far. It'll last for a while, but it will not buy somebody's loyalty forever, because somebody will come along and pay them more, and their loyalty will change to whoever's paying a better price. But everyone likes to be appreciated. Rule number 6, celebrate your successes. Find some humor in your failures, because there are always going to be both successes and failures. Don't take yourself so seriously. Have fun. Show enthusiasm. And in the book, he has a number of different ways to do a lot of other things like that. Interesting. Very interesting personality, Mr. Walton. Number 7, listen to everyone in your company. Figure out ways to get them talking. The ones who actually talk to the customer are the ones who really know what's going on. We call it boots on the ground. Because again, if management is up in their high tower on the 44th floor, they're not down there dealing with the customers on a day-to-day basis. They're not the boots on the ground in the stores, talking to the customers, handling any kind of service issue that comes up, or providing customer service. So listen to what those people have to say. Listen to what they're trying to tell you. Number 8, exceed your customers' expectations. Give them what they want, and then also give them a little more. Let them know you appreciate them. Make good on all of your mistakes, And don't make excuses. Apologize. How I wish that people in the political arena could learn that lesson. Stop making excuses and just apologize for your mistakes. Sam Walton said that the most important 2 words in his vocabulary are satisfaction guaranteed. And I believe that that is on all of the Walmart stores. Number 9, control your expenses better than your competition controls their expenses. Now that's a creative statement. Mr. Walton was known as a cheapskate or a skinflint because he didn't spend money. I mean, he had his own airplane, so many times when they had to fly somewhere, they took his private plane. But they didn't have a company plane until sometime right before he died. And in the book, he said they had to drag him kicking and screaming to get him to agree to buy that. When he flew commercial, he flew coach, you know, regular. He didn't sit in first class or business class. He flew coach, and he made all of his management team fly coach. But once I realized what his strategy was, again, I mean, this may or may not work for you, and it's not necessary that it has to work for you, but the key point about controlling your expenses is very, very valid, because the difference between you and your competition is how well you control your expenses. You can make a lot of different mistakes and still recover if you run an efficient operation. Or you can be brilliant and still go out of business because you're too inefficient. I think that probably says it all. So whether you agree with flying and coach or not is immaterial. Whether you agree with owning your corporate plane, immaterial. You know, those are business expenses and you can write them off. You can write off flying first class if you're going on a business trip, not if you're going on your own personal vacation. But the key is to control them in such a way that you do a better job of it than your competition does. And his last rule, which I think is really interesting, swim upstream. Go the other way. Ignore conventional wisdom. If you've got an idea and you just know that it's going to work, and this goes back to what we said a few minutes ago about punching the ignore button on your head when people tell you that it can't be done. But if you have a business strategy and you know that that strategy is going to be successful, even though all of the textbooks and all of the business consultants and business gurus say, no, no, you can't do it that way, then swim upstream. This is a statement that Mr. Walton said he heard the most often when people were criticizing him over all the years. What he heard most often was this statement: a town of less than 50,000 population cannot support a discount store for very long. Well, I think that's the classic example of swimming upstream, because he clearly thought that putting stores in small communities, giving people who did not have access to good prices that they could afford, because, you know, back in the day when he was first starting all of this, the United States was mostly an agricultural economy. So in the agricultural regions, and Arkansas is a huge agricultural state, still is today, lots of those little communities did not have access to stores where they could buy anything. And when they had to going to town, wherever that was, and it could be 100 miles away, it was very expensive. It was expensive to get there, number one, and the prices were expensive. So his whole philosophy of putting discount stores in small communities to help out people who could not afford to pay high prices and couldn't afford to travel long distances was absolutely a groundbreaking business concept. And look where Walmart is today. So that closes our discussion of the Walmart case study. For your project this coming month, I'd like for you to go back and do the same thing with part 2 that you did with part 1. What is it that has jumped out at you as we've been going through this discussion? You know, what features about Walmart that we've discussed in part 2 have just leaped off the screen at you and said, this is important to you, pay attention to this? Then go back and look at Sam's 10 rules for building a business and figure out for yourself what you think works for you and what doesn't right now. And I would add a comment of my own by saying that, you know, it's fine if not all of it works for you. Over time, that will change. And certain things that don't work for you right now may work for you at a later time as you build and expand your own business. I don't think that Sam Walton is the end-all be-all with his 10 rules, you know, because every company is different. Every founder of a company is a different person. The management teams are different. So it's okay if not all of it applies or if you don't see the wisdom in it. But take a look at those 10 rules and see what it is that you can glean from them that will help you right now. What's your dream? Write that down if you haven't already done it. And then answer the question for yourself. How committed am I to this dream? I would be really interested in hearing from anyone who has a comment on all of this, who has suggestions about how they've used it or how they think that it will help them in the future. You can always contact me at oliveros@flash.net, which is my email address, or you can go to my website, www.carolitaoliveros.com, and there's a place on my website where you can send me a message and I'll get that. I'd also really like to hear from you if you're interested in having maybe a couple more in the future. Maybe we could do Amazon, or if you've got a company that you would like to have a case study on. I would love to hear from you and hear your ideas about that. I started with these two because of their ranking worldwide. And if there are other companies that you're really interested in, I would really like to hear that from you. So please feel free to share those ideas with me. And Bill, as always, it has been my pleasure to do the presentation today.
Well, Carolita, thank you so much. This was an amazing presentation. What a story. What an empire the Sam Walton, who's the pioneer, and the family have actually created over all these decades of hard work, starting with a dream but total commitment. So there's a lot of great nuggets to take away from that, Carolita. And I love your last comment, of course. What is your dream and what is your commitment to that dream? Because really that is why Waltons is still here today. what's our New Year's resolution. And most resolutions that people make on the first of each year are given up by the end of the first month. So these are certainly the 10 rules of St. Walton. A person that's done it, the family's doing it, it's left a heritage, it's left a huge amount of wealth to his family and his children's children, multiple generations. I think he left over well over $150 billion in value in assets to their family. So this is a great story, Carolita. I really thank you, because this has been a lot of research, a lot of hard work gone into this, and we certainly look forward to having you on. Well, it's going to be our last call for 2017. Maybe what we could do, Carolita, for people on this call, if they like, they could shoot an email into you and actually maybe what their subject would be, bring closure for 2017, if you're open to that, Carolita.
Thanks, Bill. I appreciate those kind words. You know, I'm a student at heart myself, and I love to learn. And these case studies, I think, are very valuable. They were certainly very valuable when I was teaching in the entrepreneurship program. And I think that the same is true today for all of us who are entrepreneurs and who want to make a success out of whatever our business efforts are.
I agree. So thank you so much, Carolita, for this great presentation and excellent content. And I want to thank everyone from Swisscom Global that's joined us from around the world. This recording will be made available in your member account for later review, to be able to go back and listen to Carolita's content. And with that, again, good night to everyone, and we look forward to seeing you on another Money Matters call next month. Thank you.